Hey everyone, Jenny Punzurk here. All right, to be very upfront, this video is a redo. All right, some of you tried to hang out with me a couple of days ago on my live on both Facebook and Instagram, and many of you heard me say that I was at a hotel, and that's the last time I'm going to try and do a live at a hotel. The Wi-Fi there just was not as consistent as it is in my office, and we got interrupted, and I ended up having to cut it off really quickly at the end there, and I apologize for anyone who was hanging out with me live. So this is a redo. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jenny Punzurk, background in the wonderful world of school psychology, have been part of this field for over 20 years. And oh gosh, what else? A lot of times nowadays, you're going to find me doing trainings. I was at a hotel because I was doing a 2-day training for some wonderful school psychologists in the Orange County area of Southern California. In addition to providing a lot of different trainings, I also get to help support some of my school districts around me with some overflow assessments, professional development, oh gosh, lots of consultation that I get to do and help support for some new hires. A lot of fun things that I get to do in my wonderful world. I'm also the founder of the Prepared School Site community, as well as PSW Monthly. So what I was attempting to do in my live was really talk a little bit about really just some self-reflection, right? I know for a lot of us, the new year is the new school year, but for everyone else who doesn't work in education, right, the new year means January 1, right? So a lot of times at the end of December, we get very self-reflective on what's been working for us and what's not been working for us. So I thought I'd just share like what's been working for me lately, what kind of things have I been working on, and what types of things am I hoping that maybe I can improve upon in 2023. And if you've never done this kind of process as a school psychologist, I'd encourage you to maybe get out a piece of paper or, start thinking some different thoughts. And for those of you who still have a couple more days before winter break, you may just want to save this video. I know for some of you, you're like, reflect. I'm just trying to get through the rest of the school year, right? Before winter break, I'm just trying to get through the next couple of meetings. So I want this to be helpful for you. So if this is not the time, just press pause, come back to this when you're ready, right? So when I am kind of wearing my school psychology hat, right? Because I get to do a lot of things. Like I mentioned, like I, provide help and support in my prepared school site community, and I do a lot of trainings, but I still get to do a lot of assessments. I still get to go to 504 meetings. I still get to go to student study team meetings. And for some of you, you may have known, like I've been trying to share like what I've been working on this school year. What types of kind of things have I just been focusing on to try and improve upon? So when I'm wearing my school psychology hat in the schools, a lot of times my main focus is evaluations. So attending meetings to talk about whether or not we want to evaluate. And then of course, IEP meetings, if we have evaluated. I love evaluating students. I love kind of figuring out what's going on. So that's kind of what I'm going to be focusing my attention when we talk about kind of some self-reflection here. So of course, let's start with what's been working well, right? And I know a lot of times we go to like all of the problems, right? My colleagues aren't doing their part, or everything's late, or my school doesn't have great interventions, or yeah, we can get there and we'll get there. But let's start with some things that are working well for us first. Okay, so I'm going to go first. What's been working well for me? Again, as many of you know, I have been kind of sharing some things that I've been working on for this school year. And some of the things that I've been focusing on are related to writing reports and explaining results in meetings. So I have been working on just being more parent friendly, right? It's something I feel like I am constantly working on, but it's kind of a specific focus for me, probably in the last 2 years. And this year, at the beginning of the school year, I was really trying on some new things, looking at some different ways to summarize my results, both in my report as well as explaining results at IEP meetings. And so I have to say, I'm still not exactly where I want to be at, but I definitely feel like I've been making a lot of great improvements. One of the things that I started to do inside my reports is for the sections that I'm usually in charge of, so most of the time I'm involved in like a multidisciplinary team report. So, if my ed specialist is involved or my SLP, they usually are like sending me their results and I copy and paste it into my Word document. But for the areas that I am in charge of, which definitely like the cognitive processing section, the social emotional section, those are the two areas I've kind of started this new kind of process with. But I started the sections with, these are the questions that I'm going to answer in this section. Kind of been setting the stage for like, this is why we're even evaluating this area. So it's not just what are the students' strengths and are there areas of concern, but if there are areas of concern, what about that? Right? If there are any cognitive processing kind of weaknesses, how is that impacting the student in the school setting? If there are social emotional concerns, how is that impacting the student in the academic setting, in their social setting as well? So I've been setting the stage at the beginning of each of those two sections of my report. And then at the end of that section, I bring the questions back and I answer them. And for me, that's really helped me focus on what I want to tell the parent, right? Or what I want to tell the student, because I have a lot of students at meetings too. This is what I learned, right? I did all this evaluation and this is what it means, right? Really trying to integrate all that information together. So I've been trying that out. I think it's been helpful for me to really synthesize a lot of the information because, for some of our evaluations, we got like multiple rating scales from multiple respondents. I've got interviews, input forms. I got a lot of information. And so trying to figure out how do I synthesize it all instead of just saying, this is what the Bass told me, and this is what the Connors told me, and this is what the interviews told me, like bringing it all together. And so that has been really helpful for me. Ideally, I'd like to spread this out to a couple more sections. Honestly, I would love to add this to like the educational history, like to really synthesize what did I learn about going through and reading every single report card since kindergarten, right? And every single piece of paper in this child's cumulative record. What are some of my takeaways? And how does that help explain what's going on? Did we find a historical perspective of academic difficulties? Or did we find a historical perspective of attentional difficulties? Or did we notice that things have been kind of going along and then something happened here? Right? So that's kind of maybe a 2023 kind of thing that I'm working on because I really just wanted to start small. I didn't want to start doing something to every single section of my report. It's just a little something that I've been working on, right? Slowly, slowly, slowly. So I think that's been really working well for me in my report. And then when I'm ready to explain the information out loud, that's been really helpful because I've already synthesized it, right? So what's been going well, those two things have been going really well for me. Not exactly 100% where I want to be at yet, but I feel really good about my progress in that area. And I have to say, just coming on these lives and telling everyone, like, this is what I'm working on, that accountability has been really, really helpful because I know for myself, I'm going to come back in and be like, this is what I've been working on and this is how it's been going, right? Instead of just like pretending to myself, like this is what I'm working on, but I'm not going to tell anybody, right? Then I have no accountability. So I love the accountability of this. So what have I noticed is not working for me? And I specifically use this word notice because I've been I'm a big podcast listener. I love listening to podcasts. And I'm part of a couple of groups that do some podcasts, a lot of like kind of coaching consultation groups. And they talk a lot about this word noticing in a very, I don't want to put non-judgmental way, right? So a lot of times we're like, well, this isn't working because this person, and then like we start having a lot of feelings about it. Or I start kind of telling myself, oh, gosh, Jenny, I can't believe you're still struggling with this after 20 years, right? Like none of those thoughts are helpful. So to me, when I am using the word noticing for myself right now, it's reminding me to just do it in a very non-judgmental way. So for me, what am I noticing is not working for me? I will tell you when I'm reflecting on my kind of journey in the report writing, evaluation, explaining results kind of space. What do I notice is not working? And I was almost going to use the word still, but I feel like the word still has some judgment too. So for right now, what am I noticing not working? I am getting things done a little last minute for me. Okay. Now, at the end of the day, I'm still showing up to every meeting with a report. I'm still ready. I'm explaining things well. But for me, what I'm noticing is the stress and anxiety leading up to that moment is a lot. And part of that is on me. I really can't look at like the rest of my team members. I will tell you, for one of my most recent evaluations, my ed specialist had given me the academic results before I had even started my results, like my testing. Like I got them early. So it's not that I'm sitting around waiting for other people. I'm sitting around waiting for me. And that's something I've been noticing. It makes me think about like when many of us learned like this term incongruence, right? Intro to psych, our psychology world, right? Feel like there's some incongruence for me about how I'm currently showing up for myself and who I really think I'm supposed to be. So sometimes I talk about future Jenny, right? Like future Jenny isn't going to be doing everything last minute. Future Jenny is going to learn whatever the opposite of procrastination is. That's what future Jenny, that's what 2023 Jenny is going to be working on. Because that's not who I see myself as, right? So for some of you, for some school psychologists, what I find is like they thrive on that, right? Like that kind of excitement. I'm like, am I going to get this done on time? That really like gets them motivated to get stuff done. That does not work for me. Not at all. So what I've really had to, again, be noticing is that there's this kind of mismatch between who I want to be, how I want to show up for me, and how I'm currently showing up for myself, right? Again, I'm always showing up for my families because I always get everything done, right? That is congruent for me because I am always in integrity. If I tell the parent, I'm going to get you the report ahead of time, you know what? I always get the report done ahead of time. If I tell them I'm going to, I will because I promised it to somebody else. But keeping promises to myself is a lot harder, right? That accountability to ourselves is a little bit harder as well. So, what's been going well? What have you been noticing about maybe what's not working for yourself? Is there any incongruence for you? Right? About who you kind of want to be, how you want to show up in this world as a school psychologist, and how you're currently showing up. And for those of you who are newer to the field, you might have a long list, right? And that's absolutely fine in the way that we're working things out. I'm still 20 years later, still having the same conversation. And I will tell you, 20 years ago, I would have still said the same thing. It's something I'm still working on. Actually had a thought about this. I was at my state association conference a couple of months ago, and we were talking about making change and wanting to do something different in our lives. And why do we not make differences in our lives? And I was really thoughtful about this. And I was like, do I not want to? Like, is it not a strong enough pull for me to make some changes? And what I kind of came to be was, nope, no, because I'm still thinking about it all the time. It's still something that's incongruent for me. So I either need to change my identity and be like, Jenny's just someone who procrastinates, but that's not me. That's not who I want to be. That's not how I want to show up. So I've really been thinking about what are some small changes, some small things I could try on in 2023. Now, those of you who know me, I love a good list. I love a good checkoff list. I definitely can use that to my advantage because I love to check things off. It makes me feel good, probably get a cool little dopamine hit from doing those types of things. And I've just realized that I've just not broken down that kind of list as it relates to this process enough for me, right? Because I think sometimes I procrastinate because I think about, I got to do all of it, right? And it seems like a really big thing, right? I need to finish all the testing. I got to get all that information from everybody. I got to figure out when I'm going to write this report. And it just seems so big that a lot of times when I sit down to do stuff, I don't, because it's too overwhelming to my brain. And so I've just like, I just gotta get it down to some smaller steps so that it's not this one big thing, right? That I'm just getting this stuff done and I'm building up some momentum. So one of the things I am going to be thinking about, yes, I think about things over the winter break. It's time for my brain to like relax and allow myself to think about what are some different ways that I could do this? What are some smaller steps that I could jot on down? And how can I put those more in my calendar, right? I live by my calendar. And what I have found is I'm not setting aside enough time in my calendar for some of these things that I think are going to take 5 seconds that actually need to take 15 minutes. Right. So one of my general rules for 2023, one of the things I'm going to be working on is honestly, if it takes more than a couple of minutes, it needs to go on my calendar. Definitely if it takes 15 minutes, it needs to go on my calendar. It just can't be a to-do list because sometimes, I don't know if you guys have that too. I will look at my to-do list and I'm like, I have like 30 things on my to-do list, but then I look at my calendar and there's no time in my calendar to address my to-do list. When do I think I'm going to get that done? Right. So I'm just going to be a little bit more mindful of that. Sometimes I've written in my calendar. Sometimes I'll just write like emails and to-do list. And I will block that time out in my calendar. I've kind of gotten away from that. Sometimes I called it margin time, like things I could do in the margins. But what I've realized is I don't have a lot of margin time. Nowadays, my calendar is back to back to back to back to back. Right. And then at the end of the day, I'm looking at my to-do list that I haven't even touched because I've been meeting. Right. So I can't go in and fix everything in January, right? Because we always work 60 days in advance, but I can be thoughtful about that. Right. And the things that I can rearrange, I am going to start looking at my calendar and see what kind of rearranging that I can do so that I can get these things done. And that they don't always just get pushed off to tomorrow, because I'm notorious for that, right? You got to love a good electronic to-do list. It's so easy just to change the date, right? You don't have to rewrite anything anywhere. So those are some changes that I am thinking about. Again, I'm not doing any major changes, but just some little things that I think might be helpful for me. And again, I know for a lot of us, when we think about a new year, we think about a new school year. Most of the world thinks about January as a new year. So I don't want to say it's a New Year's resolution, but one of the things that I do want to work on for myself is really kind of getting back into that congruence about really how I want to show up in the world. And so one of the things that I'm going to be doing, inside my Prepared School Site community in January. And I want to invite you, if you're not part of our community and that you might think this might be helpful for you, feel free to join our community. You can join and just be a part of it month to month, and you can cancel anytime. You can join and be a part of it for 3 months at a time and cancel anytime. But I was looking through some books that in the past have really been helpful for me. And one of the books that I landed on was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And, there's so much information out there about habits, right? I'm a big fan of Atomic Habits. I'm in the middle of Tiny Habits. So I got the Habits book. And the reason why I picked this, a couple of reasons. Number one, I picked this book up off my shelf. I have had this book on my shelf for a number of years. I read it quite a while ago. And I don't know if you've ever done this. I opened up the book. Not only was there highlights and underlines, I don't know about you. It's always fun for me to go back and be like, what did I think was important 10 years ago when I read this book? But there's like Post-it notes at the end of every chapter. I was like, that sounds like a cool thing, right? Of course, I closed the book and I put it back on my shelf. I haven't looked at it in a while. But for those of you who don't know, that the authors of this book, the family, the Covey family who wrote this book, they also have the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens and the 7 Habits of Happy Kids. So there's a whole series of books. So what we're going to do, we're going to start in January, and we're going to kind of attack one habit every single week. And so obviously 7 habits, I can't get through January. So it's going to spill over to February as well. And we're just going to take one habit every single month. And those prepared school site community members who want to participate, they can choose to either read the 7 habits of highly effective people, which I always think about ways we can, improve ourselves, or they can read the books, the 7 habits of highly effective teens. I'm going to read all 3 of them and see how we can apply this information to the students that we work with. Or if you want to, you can just read the 7 habits of happy kids. It's a super cute, happy book, much shorter, but all the habits are the same. They're the same habits for everybody. But obviously, we are talking about it in a different way for every kind of age group. So if this is something that you think might be interesting for you, feel free to check out my prepared school site community. You should go to my website, which is jennyponzurek.com. My email address, jennyponzurek.com. Or I should say, not email address, my website, which is just my name, jennyponzurek.com. And you can find out all the information about signing up for the Prepared School Site community. And for those of you who are already part of the community, we're going to start doing this in January. So if you want to follow along, feel free to either find your book on the shelf, if you already have one, or figure out which of the 3 books that maybe you want to read alongside us. And, make sure that's on your Amazon wish list or your Barnes & Noble wish list for the holidays here. All right. Again, I want to apologize for anyone who's hanging out with me during the actual live. I'm so sorry that we ended up having to cut off. Bad Wi-Fi in hotels. Not going to do that again. And I will see you guys all soon. All right. Bye, everyone.